Thank you so much for joining. We'll start the session in just 1 more minute. Like my colleague Samita is mentioning on chat, feel free to drop in your questions, your thoughts, your comments, anything on the chat, and Q&A. Would be more than happy to make the session as interactive as possible. Okay, I think we are good to go. Let's get started with the session. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining in. All the innovators and entrepreneurs in the room. Welcome to this insightful/fun webinar on Waste to Wealth, raising capital for circular economy initiatives. Before we delve into this exciting topic, let me introduce NSRCEL. We are a startup incubation center of IIM Bangalore, and its exceptional impact of its vertical. For over 20 years, NSRCEL have been catalyzing entrepreneurship ecosystem, bringing together amazing founders like you all, government bodies, ecosystem partners, and fellow incubators. At the core of our mission is to support startups and aspiring entrepreneurs with a 360-degree perspective, providing a comprehensive support that you all need. And within NSRCEL, we have Impact Orbit program, which is an exceptional vertical that nurtures only social entrepreneurs and their innovations in social impact. Impact Orbit vertical focuses on 3 sub-verticals: rural economy, circular economy, and tech-enabled social innovations. Through these domains, we aim to create meaningful impact addressing pressing social and environmental challenges. I would also like to highlight that we are starting a new cohort for tech-enabled social innovations, and the deadline to apply for it is 10th October. I will share the application link with you all on the chat soon. Now, let's dive into our webinar topic. I am thrilled to see such an enthusiastic turnout today. At Impact Orbit, we have worked with multiple circular economy startups over the last few years, and we have seen fundraising as a critical challenge because fundraising for waste management and circular economy is not as mainstream as other sectors are. And since then, we have been on a mission to identify alternative funding sources for such verticals and building a fundraising ecosystem around this. Our webinar today is also because of the same mission. Throughout this webinar, our speakers will not only share their expertise, but will also dive into their own experiences, including the challenges that they have faced, their remarkable successes, and invaluable lessons that they all have learned. I would also like to introduce Nachiket, our AVP at Social Entrepreneurship at NSRCEL. He has more than a decade of experience spanning global corporations, startups, and incubators. His expertise in building innovative ecosystem and his passion for social enterprises and impact investment makes him the perfect moderator for today's session. I would give the stage shortly to Nachiket, but just before we begin, a quick reminder that you all can engage with our speakers, ask questions in the chat and Q&A. We highly encourage active participation to make this session as interactive and enriching as possible. Yes, Nachiket, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ashna. Thanks for the introduction and the context. A very good afternoon to all of you. Good evening, actually. It's 4:30 and it's the first day after a long weekend. So we will try and make this as exciting as it is. So a little bit about myself and why I'm sort of passionate about, educating entrepreneurs about alternate sources of capital, right? As a lot of Indians did, I did engineering and business before I actually found what I want to do in life. And in that journey, I worked at a corporate in the US, came back to India, worked with impact investments, investors like Will Grow, worked with one of their startups in the renewable energy space, and then had my own startup for 2-3 years. And I've been with NSRCEL for the last 2 years, heading the social entrepreneurship space, which, as Ashna mentioned, we have branded quite opportunistically as Impact Orbit, if you will. But in the close journeys, either as an entrepreneur or assisting another entrepreneur, what I did realize is entrepreneurs go through multiple meetings and months of efforts in fundraising, and more so in the impact sector, or even nowadays in the waste management and the circular economy sector, right? And that's something what I've been trying to crack, as to see what are those alternate sources of capital. Why should an entrepreneur wait for 6 odd months going through 30 odd VCs, banks, whatever it may be, and still not know what the answer is, right? Whether I'm getting my money today or not is something you won't know. And traditionally, if you see, a lot of the knowledge is around probably banks and VCs, and not about other sources of capital. So here, it's my pleasure to bring on board a great panel. I have co-founders of WeVOIS, Abhishek and Abhinav. Please say hi, and I'll come back to you for introductions.
Hi, I'm Abhishek Gupta, co-founder and CEO of WeVOIS Labs. Abhinav.
Hey everyone, Abhinav this side.
Yeah, and well, I welcome Amar as well, who's a founding partner at Recur Club.
Good evening, everyone. We're looking forward to an engaging session to break the monotony post the long weekend. So, yeah, looking forward to having a nice, engaging discussion with all of us.
Thank you, the three of you, to join us. What I would want to start off with is, while I said, right, a lot of us are just used to hearing about banks, used to hearing about VCs, and that's what is out there. And part of our mission, and I've been in quite a few of these sessions with Amar as well, is to actually crack that norm and make people understand that there are a lot of other options available, right? And one of the things, and maybe one of the ways to find that out, is among yourselves, whoever are founders. And Asna, if you can help me with the poll and share the poll results as soon as we do it, is I would want to know, among the entrepreneurs here, what sort of sources of capital have you used to raise funds? Asna, you can take over the poll and let me know when the poll is done. So we have multiple options for you within friends and families, angels, HNIs, incubators and foundations, banks and NBFCs and VCs. And for those who actually know and have visited or met alternate financing, you can choose that source. For some of you probably have actually gone through all sources, then you're doing a smart job. Interesting. Okay. $53 out of 53 answered. Okay. Very nice. Very interesting. I think it's done, right? Can I end the poll here, Ashna?
Yes, you can. We know the flavor of the season from these answers. So
That's a good one. Yeah, looks like a lot of it is sort of skewed towards the first top of the row. But great. Okay, this is a good idea, and if you can actually let me mind map it, 84%, 28% share results. Yeah. Okay. Great. So as a lot of you have seen, yes, good that you've gone to your friends and families. Friends and families may have referred angels, may have referred further HNIs, and then they may have further referred incubators and foundations. What I would want to share here is, okay, let me close this. One of the ventures that was incubated at NSRCEL, right, has actually tapped multiple sources of capital. They are in the EV infrastructure space. I don't want to name them, but from 2016 to 2019, pre-pandemic, early stages, prototyping stages, they took capital from friends and family, based on their relationships and their arrangements. They were either either a loan, or in some cases, a lot of friends say, hey, you know what, I'm banking on you. The venture will be an outcome, so I don't care. I don't care if I get the money back or not. So they smartly went to friends and family. For R&D, they actually tapped the grants within Columbia Coworks, started sort of hitting the market, hence needed working capital. Incubators like NSRCEL have tie-ups with banks like Indian Bank for a working capital facility. So they tapped that. And then when they started making consistent revenues, they started using various financial products from a lot of new age fintechs like transaction-based financing or invoice factoring. And now they're actually pretty big and came back to NSRCEL for a larger grant for diversifying their product into into multiple products, and again receiving a larger capital grant for probably a capex investment of beyond 50 lakhs. So in all this entrepreneur tells me that it's been 6 or 7 years. Right now, I've not had the requirement to start talking to VCs. Of course, he understood this after talking to multiple VCs. But in the last 2 months, I know he has started to meet VCs and things have become fairly positive for him because he has gone through this journey in optimizing his sources of capital for the specific requirement that is there. And we'll cover in details as to what can be the smart way of structuring this. Of course, there is no one way. That's a disclaimer I would probably keep giving through this, session. Every sector is different. In fact, your personal goals may also come into play. You may want to run a venture for 5 years, sell it to someone else. It may become a unicorn, and then you may want to move on to set up something else, or you may want to be sort of married to the sector, which in the impact space, it's sort of more seen, and also it takes that much time to create and set up an entity. So you may see founders who've been here who would want to be engaged in doing what they're doing for 10 years and actually probably become thought leaders and create solid impact while doing so. So with that, I would want to introduce both Abhishek and Abhinav, and I would probably give the stage to them to introduce themselves. Maybe Abhinav and Abhishek, you can probably take a few minutes to talk about your personal and family backgrounds, where you guys were brought up, and where did you both meet, and come up with this great idea of WeVOIS. And I'll give the next 5 minutes to you guys.
Oh, yes. So, our story started with our background only. So I born and brought up with sanitation and plumbing and construction workers, and what I have seen, I had very special moments with them because of my father's work. So I've seen their learnings, their skills, what they have learned from their forefathers. At the same time, I have also seen their struggles, the debt trap, the medical thought process for them. So that was the first dot point. And then second dot point was later on I have realized कि ये सिर्फ plumbing और construction workers के साथ नहीं है. Like it is true for all workers working in unorganized sector or working at the bottom of the pyramid. Then next what happened, like I was working as a research assistant at IIT Delhi, and I saw one guy peeing on IIT Delhi's wall. And when you're part of something anyways, it is disheartening, but when you are part of something, you are very close to such organization. So I was very much frustrated, and I was thinking, what could be the reason? So I just called Abhinav and I said, Abhinav, I am thinking, why not to create an app for people with which they can navigate toilets and dustbins. So maybe 50 to 60% people would less do such things. And I said, and I feel like maybe 50% chances are there, this could become a success. So Abhinav said, startup अगर यार 3% से ज़्यादा success होता है, तो ये तो achievement है, I am in. So
अभिनव को आप कैसे जानते थे पहले?
So Abhinav and I, we both know from 11 years. हम लोग कॉलेज में साथ पढ़े थे, and I don't know, since कॉलेज से ऐसा कुछ था कि साथ में different activities करना अच्छा लगता था. In fact, in 2014, स्वच्छ भारत मिशन launch हुआ, and our college director appointed us as Swachhta ambassadors. So there, with a bunch of volunteers, हम लोग पहले कॉलेज में सफाई स्टार्ट किया, then city में स्वच्छता ड्राइव स्टार्ट किए, मैराथन्स करवाए. So yeah, so in college we met, and college में भी साथ में काम किया, and then later on I got the opportunity to work with him, और अभी last 5 years से we are working together.
और ये सब कहाँ था, in Jaipur?
We both studied from IIIT Jabalpur. दोनों मैकेनिकल इंजीनियरिंग से हम लोग अंडरग्रेड किया हम दोनों ने.
Great, great. Over to you, Abhinav. आपकी कहानी क्या है और अभिषेक कहाँ मिले according to you? शायद अलग वर्षन ही होगा आपका.
No, mostly it would be same. But if I talk about my background, so I come from a family where even generations, maybe no one has ever opened a shop, let alone talk about business or entrepreneurship. So, but fortunately for me, I am youngest among 5 siblings. So I didn't have any responsibilities as such. And coming from a good institute, I always felt that I felt that I should take the responsibility to work for unprivileged people. And both Abhishek and mine, our motto has been that we want to change the way how privileged people think about creating opportunity and enable unprivileged people. So generally when we talk about social impact, we think that, let's say, if I am doing something of impact, then it becomes everyone's responsibility to come on board and feels similarly passionate about the same cause. But why I and Abhishek enjoy working together is because we both feel that while our first motive is to create the impact, our first motive is to work for sanitation workers, at the same time we have to understand that we have to create models, we have to create our business, we have to create our products in a way that it becomes other people get benefit in creating opportunities for unprivileged people. But coming back to the story, I and Abhishek met in college. We did a lot of cultural festival together, clubbing together. कुछ भी opportunity मिलती थी तो what we call leadership opportunities, but more of netagiri and whatever, wherever we could get in our hands and kind of hone our skills, kind of get outside the those classes and everything, and we totally enjoyed it. And similarly we are enjoying building this organization together.
Great. Great background. Looks like अभी शादी हो गई. And now please tell us about, yes, social impact के बारे में सोचा है, right? But obviously one has to feed the company, one has to feed yourselves, one has to feed the employees and eventually the shareholders, right? So if you can tell us about, what the initial business model of WeVOIS was, how you ideated and where you are today. And if you want that the slide you made to sort of explain that, I'll be happy to share. But go ahead, you can share your stories and maybe I can come to the slide towards the end.
Okay, so basically, as Abhishek said, Abhishek called me one evening and told that let's build this application, and it was interesting. It was something new, so I came on board and we built that application. Abhishek went on ground and basically started pitching to other municipalities about the same offerings. And then we thought that what else can we do? Okay, we have made this application. So there were two thoughts in our mind. One was Google has already started putting those dustbins and public toilets information in Google Maps. So we thought that there is no point of reinventing the wheel, or there is no point of going into that direction. So we thought, where else can we increase the value? Where else can we create the value? So next, because we come from mechanical engineering, तो hardware बहुत पसंद था हमें. So we thought, let's make a smart dustbin, because dustbins भरे हुए कचरा उसके चारों, और we had been seeing that from childhood. So we thought of building that smart dustbin, which will basically have a sensor, will know the fill rate of a dustbin in real time, and accordingly we can use the resources. We built the prototype again, and Abhishek again went on the ground, started pitching that to different decision makers and municipalities. But what we found out on the ground was कि challenge ही different था. We are talking about making smart dustbins, but on the ground dustbin ulta pada hai, or dog is jumping in the dustbin, गाय उसमें कुछ खा रही है. So that was a totally different challenge. And then Abhishek actually started talking to the decision makers and found out कि जो एक प्रॉब्लम है वो ये है कि डोर टू डोर वेस्ट कलेक्शन इज द बिगेस्ट प्रॉब्लम for the decision makers or for stakeholders over there. And then we had been discussing a lot about how we can basically improve the lives of sanitation workers. Then we sat on the table. We thought that, okay, that is our motive, but at the same time, we need to understand that we have to create the value for other stakeholders also. And that is the process of building any organization. We cannot just look into or look at one stakeholder. We have to think about our teammates also. We have to think about our customers. We have to think about our investors. Similarly, we also have to think about decision makers, government bodies, and citizens also. So we thought that let's build a technology where not only we are able to make our sanitation workers as a first beneficiary of the movement, but at the same time, using our technology becomes a good decision for municipal authorities. It becomes a good decision for citizens. It becomes a good decisions for all other stakeholders involved. And then when we came on to this thing called Recur model, where we bring transparency and efficiency into solid waste management and especially door-to-door waste collection. And by bringing transparency, we are making it beneficial for government bodies or authorities to work on this model. And at the same time, because we are able to bring the efficiency, we are able to enable sanitation workers to provide more value, and in turn we are able to give them better salaries, we are able to give them better benefits, and similarly and in turn our citizens are getting better services. But we started from there, and now in 4 years we are serving 30 lakhs citizens of India. More than 1,200 sanitation workers are using our platform. They are employed with us directly or indirectly. So that has been our journey in nutshell. Abhishek, if you want to add anything onto it.
Yeah, like most of the things were covered. But the one core idea which like we were very much aligned is sustainability. Social impact के नाम पे ये नहीं कि like बस भला 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 सोचना, there shouldn't be a revenue model or revenue model या burn चलता रहेगा. It was very clear from the very first day of our day of our starting. तो ये हमेशा से था. एंड लाइक हम लोग डे वन से फ्रॉम आवर ऑपरेशंस वी वर प्रॉफिटेबल टिल नाउ. कभी यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स नेगेटिव नहीं गया. तो दो कंसिडरिंग सैनिटेशन वर्कर्स आर फर्स्ट प्राइमरी बेनिफिशरीज एंड देन पोल्यूटर्स लाइक अस और म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशंस आर द नेक्स्ट बेनिफिशरीज. उनके लिए काम करना था, बहुत क्लियर था. बट सोशल इम्पैक्ट और सस्टेनेबिलिटी बहुत क्लियर था. सेकेंडली, लाइक for us it is always very clear कि actual hero sanitation workers है. The only problem is sanitation workers bottom of the pyramid में भी actual में उस level पर हैं जब कोई और काम नहीं मिलता. That's why they are working in solid waste management. So we have to do something so that whole scenario would change. So what we do, we know as an employee, if we have task, मेरे पास आज 3 काम है, मैंने खत्म किया, at the end of the day I have a feeling of happiness. So same thing, we assign them 1,000 household every day, and at the end of the day we can see the pride. I have done my work well, really well. The next thing is dignity. Most of the people blaming sanitation workers or municipal corporations. So जब काम पूरा हो रहा है, then they are getting the appreciation. Every day when they are coming for waste collection, they are being recognized by the people. In COVID, several incidents happened, उनको मालाएं पहनाई गई. So like we felt that proud. And the third thing, the wages. In like almost all of the municipalities, sanitation workers are working, and all of them are either paid somewhere around minimum wages. But we knew, if we want them to work in a efficient manner, we should give them better wages. So keeping these 3 things as a thumb rule, we started, and we knew if we can focus on that, then waste segregation, upcycling, recycling, converting compost into bio-CNG and manure, are going to be the end results. And that's what happened that we have seen.
Thanks. Great. So that was a great transformation in your journey over a period of probably 3 or 4 years, right? कहाँ से चालू किया, क्या सोचा customer को क्या चाहिए और क्या पा रहा है. If you can just probably last question to you both before I move on to Amar, and then come back is just for understanding in layman terms, if you can explain to the audience who is your paying customer, and if there are multiple revenue streams, that as well.
Okay, so I'll talk about two main paying customers. So one is the government body, municipal corporation. So like the Swachh Bharat mission is being primarily being done by municipal corporations. So municipal corporation has a mandate by government that they have to send waste collection vehicles to each and every household. So our first paying customer is municipal corporation, and our second customer is those solid waste management companies who actually wanted to do good work in this field. So we have these two clients. So 11 municipal corporations as a client and 4 solid waste management companies as a client are our paying customers. So in one case, we are doing the operations using our own platform. Our platform is like Ola and Uber. And in other case, we are just giving our platform as in a SaaS model, where solid waste management are companies utilizing it and paying us monthly fee. So these are the two models.
Great, thank you. That makes it a lot more clear. Over to Amar. Some personal background. Where did you meet founders, co-founders at Recur? What does Recur do now?
Nachiket, thank you so much for bringing me in. I was thoroughly enjoying spectating both Abhinav and Abhishek. While we have been working together since 2021, there are certain stories, right? Especially when we're speaking with founders in the ecosystem, where when they're speaking about their vision and they generally talk about what has helped them, there are such fundamental points which I believe we will be touching based on that Abhishek and Abhinav mentioned. You can keep hearing these stories time and again. Yeah. So very happy to be a part of this discussion. Thank you so much, guys. It's quite an sort of after the long weekend, really something that we were all looking forward to be able to be here and speak about this ecosystem. What are we really creating at Recur? How are we really trying to assist companies like WeVOIS via our platform? But before I jump into that, a very quick introduction of mine. I'm the founding partner here at Recur. Primarily, I look after all the revenue functions of the company. What is Recur is something that we will be discussing time and again over this period. So I'll first start with my background. I come from a lineage of army officers. I am similar to Abhinav's first in the family that did not decide to join the defense, but could have been the 4th generation there, which would have added some much needed weight. But yeah, decided to pursue a career in finance and followed the same sort of trajectory. Did mathematical economics, followed by my master's in finance, and then spent what I believe really helped me carve my investment thesis and build my own way of thinking about risk and reward in a firm called Marsh & McLennan, where I spent about 8 odd years, right from my internship till starting Recur. Coincidentally, while my stint at Marsh was on, I met my co-founder at Recur, that's Eklavya. The short and the fun story is that we used to play poker together. The long story is that he was a part of a Canadian pension fund that was evaluating an asset in Hyderabad, and we were the consultants on that deal. And I clearly remember it was one fine evening that we were just sitting on a table, and I mean, certain discussions were going on, and non-dilutive capital as a thought really came up. Because till then, considering that they were always buying assets and targets in India, only dilutive capital hamara focus tha, right? It was always about dilutive capital. How do you structure dilutive deals? How do you really make the rich richer? But there was a very big market space that was available to really uplift the strata or the new age companies or the new age economy that's really booming and shaping up. Eklavya and Abhinav are batchmates from IIM Cal. I know I should not be sort of taking names, but yeah, they're batchmates from IIM Cal, and that's how Abhinav, who comes from his background to truly build for scale, right? From IIT Delhi, IIM Cal, they were both batchmates. That's how the 3 of us met and kickstarted our journey at Recur. What we were very clear on before I jumped into what Recur does was to build for new age companies and asset light companies a distribution mechanism of financial debt products or non-dilutive products that can solve for use cases that you have in the market. It is extremely, extremely crucial throughout the journey that Nachiket built the premise on from an equity standpoint, or for that matter, what Abhinav and Abhishek spoke about their journeys, and what I saw as a trend that came out in the first poll that Ashna took of us going to friends and family. What is extremely important and one of the most focal points of my discussion this evening would be, why do you need to raise capital? Identifying the why before even the thought of raising capital is absolutely paramount to figure what form of capital is one available in the market, and two can complement the journey that you are on. Just to make this towards what we do at Recur, this is my day job, where speaking with founders, speaking with the companies that are right from their pre-seed up till Series D funded stage, looking at their capital structures, looking at their use cases that they have identified, and then facilitating a structured debt product, which could be something as simple as an OTC banking product or a more structured debt product. Facilitating all of this via our platform in a non-dilutive or a partially dilutive manner is what Recur really does. Funny story where I'll take this opportunity to maybe just sort of align how WeVOIS and Recur came together. WeVOIS is Recur's first company. When we started our business operations, Abhinav and Abhishek were kind enough to really go down this path that we wanted to build, that non-dilutive capital, and thinking about capital in a more judicious manner can create long-term value. Generally, the mindset, especially in the hustle ecosystem that we live in, short-term gratification becomes extremely important for most of us. And this educative mindset of really having a long-term view towards something that you're building is what I learned via Abhinav and Abhishek while helping build Recur. And thanks to the trajectory that we have been on, with the support that we got from founders like Abhishek and Abhinav, we are currently serving 750 plus companies and founders on the platform to facilitate non-dilutive capital. So that's what we do. That's where my personal journey comes from. And I'm quite sort of excited to speak about different forms of capital. I can take a minute, Nachi, if you do allow me, to take the audience of how I met Abhishek. This was
that was my next question, right? Can you describe the whole meeting? What coffee shop, what bar, where it was, railway station, airport, kahan mile, and what was your personal prudence and judgment on, why bank on these two guys who's building a waste management startup selling to the government, and financial risk that you guys considered? And then I can probably go back to them, because I also want to understand who all they met before they met you and what was said to them.
Absolutely, Nachiket. I think that's the sort of main premise of this entire discussion. Before I answer that question directly, and a more sort of general aspect that really worked for us at Recur, we raised a couple of rounds. We have ourselves, while we facilitate structured, non-dilutive or partially dilutive capital in the market, we ourselves, while raising capital for Recur, explored all these avenues, and something that we would be discussing about. What really worked for us and how WeVOIS and Recur combined was that when the three of us got together, that's the Abhinav on Recur side and not the Abhinav on the screen for everyone here. Abhinav, Eklavya and I got together was we understood the strengths that the three of us possess, and the founding team that all got together. That was the first 10 of us. But more importantly, the general mindset of finding a co-founder is look for complementary skill sets. Something that gets avoided is also someone who can under leverage or reduce leverage of your limitations. So more general advice that really worked for us, especially when our team was getting set up, the first 6-7 guys, the foundation, was we analyze each other's strength. While we leverage the strength, we truly wanted to complement the limitations that we possessed. And that is what really worked out for the three of us. And especially when WeVOIS came as an opportunity to kickstart this journey at Recur. Abhinav possessed the mindset to really think about product, SaaS, scale, and really evaluate a technological business, while we possess some skill set in terms of financial modeling, risk analysis, in terms of what are the kind of risks and how do you curtail, curate, and really analyze risk. This combination of a skill set allowed us to pick up a niche in the market, which were SaaS companies or companies that have any form of recurring, predictable, or cyclical revenue, where revenue in itself can be an asset class that can be either mortgaged or collateralized or used to raise capital. The general funda, Nachiket, जो Indian market and generally market में चलता है, इसकी यार आपने company raise करी and आपने सबसे पहले आपने जाके देखा कि यार मैं पहला कस्टमर अर्न करूंगा, उसके बाद I want to sort of get my first cash flow. But what was generally happening in the market was that founders and leaders were celebrating investor money in their company. They were not celebrating customer money in their company, right? And that thesis, to be really able to figure out that a customer money is something that can be leveraged even in the long run, and investor money will come, it will give you a short-term boost, but what will truly value and build your brand is that customer trusting you and giving you repeat cash flow. So that's how our investment thesis got built. WeVOIS, when Abhishek and I met in a cold meeting room, there is absolutely zero association before starting Recur and WeVOIS that Abhishek and I possess. It was a cold reach out. We were sitting in something called LinkedIn Dash room, where it was a speed dating between founders happening. And at that time, we weren't even a founder. Recur's name was, I think, just the spelling we had come out with at that time. And I was just in that forum trying to look for like-minded individuals, someone to learn from, that, how are they thinking about capital financing. Abhishek was one of my first speed dates. And well, it's a long-term relationship that we have entered into. It's going strong and I hope to commit it. That's how we met. And that's where our thesis straight away clicked, because meeting Abhinav and Abhishek, it gave us belief in the model that we wanted to create, which is equity is finite. Hold on to your equity for long-term gains and use alternative financing or complementary sources of revenue, something that you've just put on the screen right now, Nachiket, that I will cover. But that's that thesis of meeting founders. We were able to test in the market that it is an area that requires someone to create solutioning on, and that's how really started the association between WeVOIS and Recur. Cool.
Great, awesome. Now back to back to the entrepreneurs in the room on the other side, where receiving capital and fundraising. So maybe Abhinav or Abhishek, from I don't know at what time point you met Amar. How many years into the journey were you guys in? But uske pehle, who all you met when you first met your, or you can also start off from, how much of your own savings you guys put in, if you want to share about that, friends and family, and eventually, what was the most one or two common reactions you would get from the initial potential investors who actually said no to you?
Yeah, so basically when we got our first project in April 2019, and before that, and there is a funny story even before I talk about the first project. When we got our first project, we were just a team of 3 people, me, Abhishek, and one developer with us. But from the starting itself, we wanted to be not only asset light, but even in developing the technology and building the product, we focused on what our client needed, and we developed that, went to the client, and somehow a lot of things turned in our favor, and we got the project. And initial few months were really difficult. We somehow got 50,000 from there, 1 lakh from there, and we definitely use our saving of last 2 years, but that wasn't also really high, so few lakhs from there. And then it was really difficult to pay the salary for initial 3-4 months. But as Abhishek also mentioned earlier, we were profitable from very first month. We struggled for starting 2-3 months because we were dealing with the government, and first bill takes a little bit time. But after that, things got easier in a sense that we had not to worry much about paying the salary, and at the same time we thought that because it's an operation heavy business, so we had to focus both on building a really great tech product as well as robusting our operational processes. So we thought of working on that for initial 1 year or so. In between, we also got one of the projects just to validate our hypothesis that this product will work for all the municipalities. And then when the COVID came, and it was difficult to get new projects. But just after the COVID, we started to think about scaling it. And at that time, we had 2 options. Honestly speaking, we also hadn't heard about alternative financing like invoice discounting or similar options. So we had two options, either to go to VC or angel investor, or go to banks. But we didn't have vintage, so nationalized bank wouldn't give us money. So we went to NBFCs. It was a bit challenging to get the money from them, because again, vintage wala issue tha. So we got money 20%, 22%, in fact, on 24% interest rate. But even at that time, we were happy to get the debt, because what I feel is that if you are getting 100 rupees in your account, and you are sure that you will generate 130, 140, 150 rupees from that 100 rupees in next month or next to next month, it's always better to get the debt, right? Because it's a risk-free money. You will be getting 100, even if you pay the interest, you will be having another 20, 30 rupees. So you won't be pushed to run really fast, do the experiments where chances of failing will increase. So that's why we thought of going with that. So initial few lakhs we raised from NBFCs. Then luckily we met with Recur, and from there, I think our growth has been really, really amazing, and we have accelerated a lot. All thanks to Recur. Yeah, Abhishek, if you want to add anything to it.
Abhishek, maybe you can cover, how and what point did you decide to, obviously continue with Recur for 2 years, and if you look at this timeline, आपको कैसे पता चला कि अभी institutional fundraise करना है, अभी VCs के पास जाना है, and how you can explain what made you take that call?
Abhishek, you are on mute.
Yeah. So when we started, as we mentioned that हम लोग day one से profitable थे, and we were all set, we wanted to raise fund. हम लोग equity के लिए we were started looking potential people. So first challenge we started facing is people were not looking to invest in startups first in waste management, and that too working with government. Secondly, we were able to convince few people, but that too, they are not giving us the right valuation. So, and that was the era of somewhere around COVID era, just the start of COVID era. And we both, me and Abhinav, are very clear, we'll grow slowly, but hum log low valuation pe we won't raise fund. And then we were able to raise some debt from banks and NBFC, बहुत tedious and filing work, बहुत सारा कुछ था. And that too, 4 years, 3 years, 5 years का period, we both don't like it, because with every project we need fund only for working capital. ये भी बहुत समझ आ गया था, बहुत हमें आराम से. बट विंटेज की वजह से वी वर लुकिंग कि चलो थोड़ा इक्विटी ले लेते हैं. देन बैंक इक्विटी वैल्यूएशन पर नहीं मिल रहा था, एंड बैंक NBFCs से फंड रेज करो. उसमें एक चैलेंज ये है, दे विल गिव यू फंड ओनली व्हेन दे हैव सम डेडलाइंस, एंड you have to take money, you have to forecast everything, even if you don't want it, and then you have to rest, you have to start paying the interest. And then that speed dating with Recur, he said, we have this product, and I said, wow, this is what actually we are looking for. So kab de sakte ho? I said. He said बहुत जल्दी दे सकते हैं. And then I think we were one of the first people who got the money. We started with 30 lakh, and now every time जब भी पैसे की जरूरत पड़ती है, so we raise money when we actually need, when we expand. So we came back to Recur. We said, this is the project, this much capital is required, and fortunately within so far our experience is so delightful that within 3 to 4 days we have gotten our money in the account. And one good thing that happened, in this process, what happened, we started getting now those investors who are actually interested in us at the right value. So we raised last year in November at a valuation of 10 million. It could have raised earlier at a lower valuation with higher dilution if if we haven't met Recur at that time. So one very important thing that happened, we were able to save a lot of equity for ourselves and for next rounds.
Just to add to what Abhishek said, one definite, while raising the equity, that was one of the decision point that we were getting the good valuation. But at the same time, we also thought that because we wanted to experiment with the processing, we wanted to set up some plans and experimentation with business models. So we thought that we'll raise the debt for the purpose where there is no risk or very less risk, but all the experimentation wala part we will raise the equity. So that's why even at that round we were getting more money, more investors were ready to put the money, but we just raised the money which was enough for us for next 1 or 2 years to do all the experimentation, even if all the experiment fails.
Thanks. Great. Looks like you met the right person at the right time with the right amount of money. But back to you, Amar. Maybe if you can throw some, shed some light on where does Recur come into play? Because I know that Recur doesn't say, or Recur is not anti-VC, right? And where in the multiple transactions that you advise entrepreneurs on, where do you actually come in and say that, do you also play an advisory role saying, hey, multiple rounds from Recur is done, and now let's probably take you to VC together? Or at some point, what is that point? Maybe across different sectors, you can cover different examples. And
Absolutely.
one last thing that you may actually talk about before we open it for questions is I would love to understand what are Recur's initiatives specifically for startups similar to WeVOIS in the climate space, in the circular economy, or waste management space.
Absolutely. Nachiket, I'm going to use one of our slides to sort of explain this in more detail, and I'll request for that to come up. But while I love being the beneficiary of all the compliments from Abhishek and Abhinav here in terms of how we were able to facilitate capital for them and really help, the true essence, what I wanted to come out on this particular call, which they covered beautifully, is that as founders, first and foremost, folks leading the company, they had a clear vision and they understood the point that I was raising earlier, that structuring of capital and making capital work for you so that you can work for your customer is not a short-term game. It is a game that requires a lot of identification of the right use case at the right time, and accordingly building performance history to be able to simply get terms or capital as in when you require. So the true winner, or rather the true reason why all of this happened, and I do note, thanks to Abhishek and Abhinav, that I'm at the liberty of sharing a couple of numbers, 2 things that really worked for us at WeVOIS. When we started, there was a small quantum, which was maybe just simply facilitated, which was, let's say, X. Today, we are sitting at roughly 14X that quantum availability for WeVOIS. But more importantly, considering we were in an extremely macro bull market in 2021 with slight corrections or corrective policy changes that we are seeing now, while repo rate has increased, while cost in the market has gone up, today WeVOIS is commanding a lower cost of capital than what they were in an inflationary market. And that was a true win, because what we built in 2021 is reaping rewards in 2023. And a general thesis that helped me while building Recur as well, one of our investors, and I mean, he's a very sort of known name in the form of Dr. Velumani. He's the single largest healthcare check. He ran ThyroCare. He, in one of the sessions, told us that at any point of time, when an investor comes to your table, don't think about the number. Your value is 2x. The day that you walk to the investor's table, your value is half X. You can forget the numbers. Equity is an extremely artistic way of raising capital. There's a lot of founder personas, modeling, valuations, TAM, SOM, SAM. I mean, there are so many jargons that can really get into it, which makes it slightly more artistic, and accordingly valuation multiples are set. But debt, Nachi, is extremely scientific. It is extremely scientific to the extent that it can be modeled and it can be distributed to just simply make this market a more borrower-friendly market. In India, credit gap always existed. The problem wasn't availability of credit. It was facilitation of credit. And that was the aim that we wanted to bridge while working with companies like WeVOIS. And that is what really came out. When founders focused on their business metrics, their operating metrics, and something that Abhishek and Abhinav very beautifully covered in what they said, profitability or trajectory towards profitability, I can assure folks on this particular webinar and listening to us that capital will walk to you. What form of capital is then something for you to choose, and what form of capital, very broadly, not to take too much time and deep dive, I'll be very happy to connect with everyone post this and maybe answer questions. Broadly, Nachi, could I request for that slide to come back on, please? Broadly, during the life cycle of your own company, it's extremely important to know that availability of capital is generally available in 4 to 5 different buckets. Equity or dilutive capital. When you are looking at an identified use case, always map your use case in terms of, is that cash or credit available in the market? How much time will this come to you in? Can you run, sustain, and thrive in your business without this money, or is it absolutely crucial for you to receive this money? Thirdly, and most importantly, how much do you want to raise and why do you want to raise? And then what is extremely important to look at when you are thinking about capital or even thinking about raising capital, while I am raising money, what is the cost I'm incurring versus my perceived or projected ROI on my raised money? This can be done with equity. This can be done with debt. This can be done with any form of capital. What is more important is why you are raising and what is your justifiable ROI on the raised money. And automatically you will know what form of credit to go for. Nachi was extremely kind in his explanation of equity. I can tell you from my own personal example, and please not to sort of quote in public, but equity investors can make life just operationally because they are investing large chunks of money, right? At Recur, nobody is anti-VC. We have to understand the risk-reward thesis of investors. For every risk that they are taking, they are going to associate a necessary reward with that. And that's how VCs think. Because they are always giving you a multiple of your top line and not a percentage of your top line like debt. Obviously, diligence is going to be more. Paperwork is going to be more. They are buying. The analogy that I generally share with all the founders that I'm speaking with, you have created and constructed a building and a perfect house with a 5 BHK in it. Today, you are selling 1 BHK and half your kitchen facilities to a absolute stranger. Obviously, he's going to diligence on your house rules, right? And that takes its necessary time. 3 to 6 months mentioned here in the market which was prevailing between 2021 to 2023 was justifiable. I can safely tell you, basis my personal experience now of fundraising at Recur, that the equity cash in bank timeline can take anywhere between 9 to 14 months. And what is coming out from this is prepare for equity capital. It is very important for you to plan a capital stack with equity capital, but timing it and preparing for it is extremely crucial. Venture debt is nothing but a simple deal or linkage to venture equity. It sort of gives out in the name itself, right? Any company that has raised venture equity in the form of the panelists that we have, Abhinav and Abhishek, they will always have the availability or an option to go down the venture debt route, where basis certain right to invest structures, basis certain partially dilutive or convertible debt structures can be offered where they can hold on to their equity for a little long. Because general thesis in the market, in the equity space, is that if you've raised your first VC round, somewhere you have either identified PMF, and PMF is product market fit, or kind of nailed down product market fit. And that's what venture debt really needs. They need a sustainable revenue source for you to be even able to offer venture debt, and that's how they link it to equity. The third is more revenue-based financing. And I will very quickly tell you that revenue can only behave in one of 3 ways. If today there is a cash flow from your customer that exists, it can either disappear tomorrow if your servicing is poor. If your servicing is great, it can expand, or it can stay the same, which means that in all 3 ways of your revenue behaving for your cash flow, you can get debt products or debt instruments associated. Revenue-based financing is for all those folks that believe are running a project, or there is an upcoming project where based on input of money or influx of money, you can split and repay debt back. So it is taking a bet on how fast can your revenue really grow. All the specifics around these products are mentioned on the slide, quite self-explanatory. I'm happy to take a question if that comes. And then the last one, which is where we come into the picture. Recur Club financing can offer each of the instruments that I had discussed. It can offer you dilutive, non-dilutive, or partially dilutive capital. And this will tie into the question that Nachiket posed for me. Why are we in existence? The reason why we are in existence is to advise you of the right form of capital at the right time to complement your capital journey. The idea being that if you can work for value creation in the market and celebrate your customer cash flow, investor and credit products or debt products can follow you. However, follow and build business and operational metrics, and accordingly, easier, more flexible products can start getting offered. This is broadly how it really works. Previously, Nachi, if I could also take another last quick minute, and if you could just go back to the slide which shows general dilution trends. There are certain household names whose data we had picked up. Someone that, I know certain names that all of us here will relate. These are all household names that we're aware of. These are also recent IPOs that we are aware of. Previously, while we are almost, most of the forum here are running new age companies, right? We are gone past the traditional fundraising methods. Enough of कि यार मेरे पास collateral है तो मुझे debt मिल सकता है, मेरे पास security है देने के लिए, मैं guarantee दे सकता हूँ तो मुझे debt मिल सकता है, या अगर मेरे पास guarantee collateral ही नहीं है देने के लिए तो मुझे सिर्फ equity मिल सकती है. Gone are those days. These businesses got made with traditional ways of financing, and you can see what happens to a founder's equity on the right hand side in household names with public information that we have pulled out. Across 6 rounds of funding, in an LTV of a company lasting about 20 years, a founder, promoter, or owner of a company shareholding comes down to sub 5%. Considering that you can complement your equity raise like WeVOIS has done with certain debt products, can allow you to not just extend your runway, it can help solve for customer problems, allow you to really think about geographical expansion, problems identified, solving use cases, delay your dilution, and accordingly raise equity when you believe you can utilize a multiple that you have raised while creating value in the market. These were more general points that I wanted to further specify based on what Abhinav and Abhishek had said. Nachi, I hope that answers the question that you had posed to me.
Yeah, great. I think that in layman terms and a little bit in depth in financial terms, I think it's a good balance. It probably explained a lot of things. Maybe Ashna, now back to you. You may want to run the second poll we were talking about, and then over to audience for questions. Abhinav को कुछ कहना है?
No.
I think Abhinav is already answering the poll. He also wants to participate.
There are a few questions on Q&A, guys, for all of you. If you would like to just, I can read a few of them for you as well.
Let the poll finish and then we can pick them up.
Yes.
Amar, you said you had a hard stop at 5:30. Okay, you can probably keep moving and take the questions.
Thank you for the prior preparation that we did, that I was able to plan slightly better. So now my hard stop is at 6.
Oh, nice.
So quite flexible, yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Amar, there are multiple questions asking how to invest through Recur Club, how to get in touch with Recur Club. So if you could just on chat put in your credentials or a link where other people can get in touch.
Most definitely, Ashna. While I will share my credentials on chat, very happy to share a more, sort of our necessary process as well, which will help give a lot of visibility for even people to evaluate whether it is the right path to take. So there are certain onboarding journeys that I'll be very happy to share, Ashna. Maybe I could do that with you, and then you can decide to circulate it to the wider group. And irrespective, I'll put my credentials and my details in the chat box.
Sure, that works. Okay, again, we do have a flavor of the season on this poll as well. Highly skewed.
Well, I mean, it's good to see 23% have actually tapped revenue-based financing and lease financing. But yeah, if you're stopping the poll, over to you for questions. Shall I?
Is there any particular order that you would like us to answer in, Ashna, Nachiket, or should we maybe just pick up the one that we find is the most relevant for us?
I'll let Ashna decide that. Yeah.
Sure.
I would say I will surely pick up the ones which are most relevant. Let me start with some recent questions. Okay, how did you convince municipalities in couple of months? There was one more question on the municipality as to how you work with them. So if you could just answer that.
Yeah, could you please repeat? Like I was just, replying that.
Okay. So there are a few questions on municipalities as to how you are working with them, convincing them, working with them, getting order of them.
Yeah, so I think there is a wrong myth with us, like which was broken when we started visiting municipal corporations. So it is very easy, just go with it. The only thing could be, the turnout ratio could be very small, but you have to with it. First of all, you have to just find out the region. So let's suppose we found out, we will first visit all the municipalities near to Jaipur, because we were based out of Jaipur that time. So we go to each and every municipality, then out of 20, only one gave us a positive response. And in if you're working with government, always the most difficult part is cracking your first client. And once you cracked your first client, and if your quality is up to the mark, then word of mouth is self-sufficient in helping you growing. So like that's how we started, and I think it could be true for all who wants to work with government or municipal corporations.
Just to add what Abhishek said, we have to understand that building a B2G business, that's a different kind of challenge. So what most of the startups, what mistake they make, they generally expect that government authorities or decision makers will bend the rules for them. But we have to understand that they have to follow the rules, they have to follow the protocols, but there can always be a sweet spot where they can follow their protocols, but at the same time we can offer the product. So once we accept that process se hi hoga kaam, and we want to go through that process, things become comparatively very easy.
All right, got it. Thanks. Amar, we have a question especially to you. If there is a project that you see high potential in but is at idea stage, do you engage with them from idea and pilot stage, or only after they have reached a certain scale? If yes, any examples that you could share?
Sure. Asham, thanks for that. So the answer is twofold here. In terms of engaging, the answer is yes. But it's very important for me to also clearly point out that at Recur, we don't do any balance sheet funding. What we do is off balance sheet funding, which means that we work as facilitators. The investment thesis we form, but the money comes from institutional lenders like banks, NBFCs, family offices, debt funds, credit funds. The reason why I'm making this demarcation is that for any risk that is there in the market, there is a credit facilitator or somebody who's willing to earn a reward package across it. It all depends on what form and what kind of capital and what nature of risk is there. For pre-revenue companies, Ashna, to be more specific to your particular question, most definitely we can engage with network connects, but Recur's core competency relies on a company which meets one of these three filtration criteria. The first being a vintage of 1 year. For any debt product to be facilitated from institutional lenders, you require the presence of audited financials or at least self-audited financials, which requires you to have business operations for at least a year. The second is a more revenue threshold, that for someone to take a predictive bet on revenue, there needs to be historical stability that can be analyzed of that revenue. And hence, there needs to be at least 85 lakhs annual revenue that a company is possessing for us to directly impact them with a structure. And the third is customer concentration. At any point of time, if the customers are extremely concentrated towards a single focus, that could become, from a structured debt standpoint, less attractive for investors. However, we, as I mentioned even previously, right from pre-seed up till Series D plus companies in the entire portfolio of 750 plus companies that we possess, we interact and engage. If we can understand the use case that the founder or the company have, and we believe we can add value to it, we will most definitely facilitate the right form of capital or the right form of advice for you.
Thank you so much. We have one more question from Rajiv Sharma. Please suggest funding options for startups which are not IT based but product based, involving plant setup and operations.
Correct, Ashna. I can take that. Rajesh, thanks for that question. It actually goes slightly beyond what you just mentioned as a question. I believe that the question can sort of have multiple